What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDoWorkHereLady. Alrighty, this story's called Entitled Karen Gets Hurt Because She Doesn't Listen. Okay, so I'm going back to work because it's finally opening back up after the virus, and that made me remember this story. Some of the moments of this are a little fuzzy as I was running on 3 hours of sleep that day. I work at a popular thrift store in Canada. When I was on maternity leave with my little one, I had to go into my store to buy some more baby clothing as he was just getting way too big for his younger clothing. I hate buying brand new unless it's on sale. So I was browsing some of the household aisles, hoping to add to my collection of weird and pretty pottery that I had started when on leave, when I hear a smash at the other end. I looked at my watch and realized that most of the employees who would deal with this problem were on lunch. So, policy is, if something glass breaks, one employee would stand at the break point to stop customers from stepping on it, and another would go get a broom to clean the mess. Most times, the people who rolled the product were on the floor to deal with it, but Cash was in charge of that when break came up. As no one was around, I decided, what the hey, I'm not in any hurry and the baby's sleeping in the cart. So I stood there and my mother-in-law, who was with me at the time, went to tell Cash about the break. Most customers were my regulars who knew I worked there and just had a baby. Some of them even stood there, out of the glass, to gush about how cute my little man is. Then this one lady who looked like a freaking Karen comes near. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'll have to ask you to go down the other aisle and come back to this one once the mess is cleaned up." She scoffed at me, looking me up and down. "You're not the boss of me! You don't even work here!" and started walking on the glass. To be fair, the clothing policy at the time was all black, and I was wearing bright colors and a long, flowing skirt. They have since gotten rid of the all-black policy, thank goodness, as I hate wearing dark colors. So I calmly said to this lady, "Please stop walking, ma'am. This glass could hurt you. And yes, I do work here. I'm just on leave with the baby." I motioned to him. "What glass? There's nothing on this floor," she said as she stopped to look on the shelves. She never even looked down. "I highly doubt you work here. You're just some entitled kid who had a baby way too young and is now trying to use it as a way to get free things." I was 23 at that point, 24 now. She went to walk away, and at that moment, this lady, if I can even call her that, freaking slipped on the glass. I asked her if she was okay, and she screamed, "Why didn't you warn me there's glass? I'll have you fired!" "I did warn you," I said as a supervisor and my mother-in-law showed up. The supervisor was the only one available to clean the mess, and she's one of the best ones there. My mother-in-law saw I was in distress and asked me what happened as the supervisor helped the lady stand. Luckily, the lady only got a small scratch on her hand from the glass. "I want her fired! Where is her manager?" Oh, so now she believes me, I thought. "I'm the manager on duty," she said to the lady. "What happened, OP?" As I explained to her what happened, the lady kept trying to butt in, but the supervisor kept holding one finger up to silence her. Another customer chimed in. "OP is telling the truth. I heard the whole thing, and you can check the cameras to see that for yourself." Most customers know that employees can get in trouble if they try to help with other customers, so they stayed out of it until now. "Thank you," the supervisor said to the nice customer, then looked at the lady. "So OP decides to go above and beyond in her job when she is on maternity leave, when she is a customer herself and tries to keep others safe. But you want her fired? You're crazy. OP did nothing wrong." The lady glares at me. "She's lying! She wanted me to get hurt. That's why she didn't tell me about the glass." It was bright freaking green. You can't even miss it like you could clear glass. "There's a witness, miss, and OP isn't the type to lie about these things." She then looked at me. "OP, go rest in the break room. Your mom can go with you too." She knew she was my mother-in-law, but always just called her my mom as she'd come in every day to pick me up when I was pregnant. So from there, I thanked her and went to the break room where my coworkers fussed over the baby, and got to take turns holding him as I rested and told them what happened. I don't know what happened to the lady, but I was given a $20 gift card as a thanks for going above and beyond, doing my job even when I was off. And it actually paid for most of my items after my discount. The lady probably left, as when I left the break room to continue shopping, she and the mess were nowhere to be seen. The funny part is, housewares are not even my section of the store, so it wasn't even my job to do it. I just didn't want to see anyone hurt, and we are all still trained to do it in case we are put into another area to help out. My question is, how do people get that old without realizing that acting like that is not okay? Like, at some point, they should have sat down and thought about how things work. I don't know, it's just baffling. Like, she freaking could have died there, honestly. I mean, it was unlikely that she would have died, but she could have. Alright, this story's called The Tale of the Entitled Self-Appointed Site Manager. I am an electrical engineer by profession and a project manager by occupation. During the middle phase of my career, I joined a company as the site manager for a power substation project in UAE. After the initial orientation and briefing at the head office, I traveled to the city where my project is based and where I would reside for the next 2 years. I was accompanied by the project manager after we reached the site office. The project manager informed me that he had to visit the client at their offices and will join me shortly and introduce me to the site engineers and staff. The site team was at the work site and the site office was empty except for the CAD draftsman and the office boy. The project manager instructed the office boy to seat me in the site manager's office and left. As per the site organization chart, I had 2 construction managers, civil and electrical, working under me and other engineers of each discipline working under them. After around an hour and a half, the door opens and a man enters. He stares at me, then glares at me for I was sitting in the seat of the site manager, which happens to be me. "Who the hell are you?" "I am OP. The new." Without even giving me time to completely reply, he goes wild. "Who gave you permission to come into my office without permission? Who do you think you are? Get the hell out of here!" I have worked in numerous projects and have handled similar folk before. This was the start of the project. Anyone who does not have the minimal courtesy and manners in talking with strangers is surely a loose cog in my system. I am a team player. I consider people with such a mentality as detrimental to the health of the team. So I had decided what course of action I would be taking, then and there. I didn't reply. I stood up, left the room. I went into the site engineer's office room. There were a few engineers who had returned from the site. I introduced myself as the new site manager and all of them stood up, with respect. I asked them to be at ease and inquired about the guy who said that the site manager's office was his. It turns out that he was the civil construction manager, and though he had his own office at the site office building, he had sort of assumed that he should be the acting site manager and moved into the site manager's office. The engineers told me that he was a bully and would throw his weight around bossing everyone, even the electrical construction manager, and was a royal pain in the ass. The head office had received numerous complaints from the site engineering team, staff, client, and the subcontractors, and he was just one write-up away from being terminated, and he simply didn't seem to care, with some sort of invincibility attitude. The project manager returns by this time. I see him and inform him that I want a private meeting with him before I get officially introduced to everyone. I sit with him in the conference room and tell him everything. I inform him that if this particular individual will be on site, it would be detrimental to my functioning and for the company too, and I recommended his removal and request to replace him with another civil construction manager. The project manager concurs, saying that he was just waiting for the guy to bite the bullet, and now that he has to go. He apologizes to me and asks the office boy to request the entire engineering team and staff to assemble in the conference room. As everyone gathers, the civil construction manager walks in, looks at me sitting in the chair next to the project manager, and stops with his jaw a-hangin'. The project manager says, "Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce you to your new site manager, Mr. OP. I expect you to extend him your full cooperation and support to make this project a success." The civil construction manager is dumbfounded. He steals peeks at me. Later, the project manager takes me to my office. I call the office boy and instruct him to remove all the stuff that belongs to the civil construction manager and shift it all to his proper office room. Later, the door opens and my civil construction manager peeps in, inquiring, "May I come in, sir?" To which I reply, "No, you may not." To cut the story short, he was replaced with a fantastic civil construction manager who got on well with the team. The snob was delegated to an office job and terminated in 2 months' time. Edited to add the rest. Later, this entitled guy joined another company doing projects for the same client. At the other site, he started shouting at a visitor to the site who turned out to be the chairman of the utility. The client, who, while passing through the city, had decided to visit the site unannounced. He was blacklisted and given an exit visa out of the UAE with a permanent ban. Guess he never learned his lesson. See, I'm a big fan of yelling and being loud and all that jazz. Like, I absolutely love yelling at people. But I don't like yelling out of anger. I like yelling positive things like, "You glorious bastard!" Because it just hypes everyone up, makes everyone feel good, and it's fun, because yelling is fun. However, this chumperoni and cheese, he likes to yell as a bully, which is not nice. Stop bullying, speak up. I don't know what I'm doing here. Alright, this story's called, "I'm Not a Student, I'm Actually a Teach..." Nope, off to detention with you. Shout out to the people who were accused of being a student when they had already graduated. I've recently started out as a teacher, hit me up. I was 27 when I had my first teaching job. Did some other stuff before, and of course, as the newbie, not everyone working at that school knew me at the time. I look a bit younger than my age, and I usually wear a pair of jeans and a nice blouse or shirt. I was working there for a bit over a month when I was walking through the hallways of the school during class hours, picking up some paperwork and heading to the teacher's room as I had a free period. An older man, I guess in his 40s, stopped me, looking kinda angry. "Excuse me, young lady, where do you think you're going? Why aren't you in class?" I'm not actually a student, but I'm a..." "Like hell you are. I've seen you walking around with the older kids. Go to your class, immediately!" "Sir, I'm really not a student, but I'm actually a teacher. I'm new here, so you probably haven't seen me, but..." "Stop your lying. Go report to the office immediately. I will make sure your parents hear of this, and don't think I won't be looking for you in detention tomorrow." I go to the office, as I needed to go there anyway, to ask something, and because this guy was way taller than me and looking really angry. My colleagues in the office, "What happened to you?" "I got sent here because I was outside during class hours. Also, could you call my parents because a man expects me in detention tomorrow?" My colleagues basically died of laughter right there, and because there's usually more than one teacher keeping an eye out during detention, and thus I couldn't tell them who of the 2 males that were actually scheduled for detention the next day had given me detention. They actually sent me to detention the next day. You'll see in a bit why. I took some grading work with me. The unknown man who sent me to detention was looking smug as crap when he saw me sitting in detention. After a few minutes, one of my colleagues from the office came in and, in the most theatrical voice you can imagine, introduced me as their new colleague and, wasn't I a dear for coming into detention while busy grading papers in order to help them out with unruly students just roaming the hallways during class hours? You should have seen the guy's face. Priceless. For some reason, he never sat at my table during lunch. I love when I have a new teacher. Not new as in new for me, but like new as in new at teaching. I don't know, I have yet to have a young teacher who I didn't have a crush on. Teachers, man, they have like an unfair advantage when it comes to attractiveness. Automatic like plus 45 out of 10. Anyways, that's not really the point of the story. I really like these stories where the teachers get mistaken as students. I read another similar story about a person whose mom was a teacher and the gym teacher got mad at her because she looked really young. Anyway, stuff like that is funny because teachers think they're so smart with their fancy master degrees. Well, guess what, dummy? You thought a 27-year-old was a student. What a dummy. Alright, now this story's called Teacher at the Prom Thinks I'm a Student. Happened a few years ago. Mid-30s Asian male with a typical baby face. I used to run a photo booth company which originally catered primarily to weddings. I got most of my work through word of mouth or from guests at the weddings who enjoyed the service. A few years into my operation, I started getting inquiries about doing high school events, i.e. proms, semi-formals, dances, I guess from teachers who were guests at the weddings. One of the guests sends me an email and introduces me to one of the head coordinators for a prom. We talk about the contract, logistics, service time, etc. Nothing out of the ordinary. I usually arrive about an hour before I begin service to deliver the equipment and set up. This is also around the time students start arriving. Now, most dances have fairly strict rules about coming in and out, but that only applies to the students. On one of my last trips for my car, one of the teachers stops me and says in a stern voice, "Students can't be coming in and out like that." With a deadpan face, I look him in the eye and say, "I'm the photographer." He says, "Oh," and lets me carry on as I bask in his embarrassment of mistaking a mid-30-year-old for a teenager. Not the first time this has happened at an event. But wait, there's more! After I had finished setting up my station, he comes over to strike up conversation about photography, as he's a bit of a hobbyist. What kind of equipment do I use, blah blah blah. A few minutes into the conversation, I feel like I've met this person before. Did you teach at so-and-so school like 20 years ago? Yes. Oh my god! Turns out he was my grade 10 and 11 science teacher in the mid-90s. It was a smaller school, so he remembered me even though he got my name slightly wrong. We had a good laugh about it. Sorry, no pitchforks required tonight. That's actually kind of a wholesome ending. I don't think I've seen any of my high school teachers, or any teachers, since I've graduated, which kinda sucks because I like a lot of my teachers. But that must have been a pretty cool reunion. You know he's gonna be telling his class that as soon as it's back in session. Oh wait, bad timing. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.